Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out this morning. We are all seeing it. We're all hearing about it. Violent crime is absolutely out of control, particularly in the Twin Cities metropolitan area, and Senate Republicans have made public safety a priority. We're doing this by providing funding for more police officers and holding violent criminals accountable for their actions. However, Republicans can't do it on our own. We need public officials at all levels and all parties to join our efforts in taking public safety very seriously, particularly prosecutors in holding violent criminals accountable. We will be rolling out more proposals on holding criminals accountable for their actions and getting tougher on crime in the coming weeks. But today, we're talking about recruiting more police officers and putting funding behind that. The Defund the Police movement and the anti-police rhetoric has really played a negative toll on police officers and police departments. A recent study has showed that the Minneapolis Police Department is anywhere from 300 to 400 officers short from where they should be, where they need to be. And it's just simply unacceptable. Law enforcement is an honorable profession. Republicans will continue to show police officers the respect and appreciation they deserve for the job they do in keeping people and communities safe. But we need our Democrat colleagues, we need public officials at the local level to join our efforts in helping get that done. And we're gonna roll out a number of proposals today to help provide funding for the recruitment of more police officers. And at this point, I will turn it over to Senator Housley.
Thank you, Senator Miller. I'm here to talk about my bill to require the Department of Public Safety to launch $1 million public service campaign to build up the entire field of law enforcement. Our law enforcement officers have given so much to our communities. They have consistently been on the front lines of every crisis facing our state. And we've been hearing from law enforcement across the state that they need help. They are under attack right now through harmful rhetoric from liberals that would prefer to defund our police departments completely. They see, the police officers see publicly elected officials across the aisle denounce the role of police officers, criticize without any facts, and assuming the worst of our law enforcement. These police officers get up every morning and go to work knowing that this could be the day that they have a call go wrong. A day that they could be injured in the line of duty, or even worse. Yet, they still do it simply because they want to serve their communities. Police officers have always trudged along and done this hard and dangerous work because they were serving a community that appreciated their service. But now, they aren't sure that sacrifice is appreciated. They aren't sure that the risks they are taking are worth it. That's why it's so important for this bill to pass in this proposal. Our police officers' heroic actions keep Minnesotans safer in their day-to-day lives. We need more police officers on the street, and we need to appreciate the police officers we have. By advertising the value and need for being a police officer, the rewarding career it can be, and the wonderful and hard work that they do every day, we can do our part to combat the harmful thing that the liberals are saying out there, and that has ultimately left us with this problem. Being a police officer is a public service to be praised and valued. They are the people we call when we are in need, and they are the people we run to when we are in danger to keep us safe. It's my hope that we can elevate and recognize all law enforcement professionals and spread the word of this rewarding career and honorable nature of this career path. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Senator Jasinski from Faribault, Minnesota. I don't want to date myself, but I do remember when I was in middle school or grade school and everybody asked what they wanted to be when they grew up. And back then, I think the top two answers were firefighter and police officer. That's not the case these days. It's sad. We are facing a crisis in the number of licensed officers available in Minnesota to even apply for the job openings we have. This might be most pronounced in the metro, but in many rural-like communities like mine, we have struggled to recruit new officers to live and work in their communities. The two proposals I have will help address that. First, by offering scholarships to students who attend Minnesota State system schools. This will make it easier for students to go to our incredible Minnesota State in law enforcement throughout the state and stay connected to their communities. There has been a drastic drop in enrollment in these programs, and scholarships will help more to help students afford into this highly needed field. The Pathways to Policing proposal is a proven and award-winning program that provides high-quality training opportunities for non-traditional entrants into the police force. These are people who have served their communities in other capacities and want to make a transition into law enforcement as a second career, many times where they already live. These programs address serious workforce concerns with money, but more important than that is that all of us who recognize the value of the work from our police officers. They are committed, they put their lives at risk every day, and they do it as a public service. We shouldn't belittle their hard work or sacrifice or cast aspirations to an entire profession. I know Minnesotans are with us on this. When Officer Matson from Waseca was severely injured in line of duty, the local community stood up and supported the family in every way possible. Minnesotans know police officers risk their lives to keep us safe. We need government policy to reflect that support, and we need public officials to join with us and say, we support law enforcement. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm State Senator Roger Chamberlain from Lino Lakes. As been mentioned already, there's a whole range of things that must be considered when we want to talk about keeping families safe in their communities and individuals safe in the streets and businesses running. And it starts with our police officers, and it starts there with recruiting and retaining those police officers. The proposal I have is fairly simple. It's a reimbursement to a certain amount for police officers, licensed police officers who have been serving for a certain amount of time. So someone that is licensed as a police officer, that person gets hired, they're working in a department for a certain amount of time, that officer then becomes eligible for reimbursement up to a certain amount. Simple, straightforward, easy. We need to recruit, hire, and retain these officers, and then behind that, make sure they're able to do their jobs and that the people behind them are prosecuting the bad actors and that those bad actors aren't being let out on bail and let out on the streets hours after they're brought in. So there's a whole thing, range of things to do. My proposal simply focuses on the recruiting, getting them in, and then reimbursing them for tuition costs to a certain point. Thank you.
Good morning, Senator Paul Gazelka from the District 9. The proposal that I have for the police is also addressing the fact that we have a major shortage of police. Think about it. Just a couple of years ago, the Minneapolis Police Force said we need 400 more police. They had 800. They asked for 400 more, and now they're down to 300. So we know that they need at least 300 more police. St. Paul needs at least 100 more police. The Highway Patrol needs at least 100 more police, and then across the entire state, there's a shortage. I talked to one individual, he said they're looking for 10 new police officers, and they only had 38 applicants. And so if you're going to get the right kind of applicant being a police officer, you know that you have to have a pool of enough people that are interested. So too many police or people that want to be a police officer no longer think it's a noble profession, and it is a noble profession. And we have to get that kind of an attitude back so that people know that they want to be that and be in that noble profession. It's also one of the riskiest professions, and so if we don't have enough police and it's a risky profession, we're gonna have to pay more. We knew there was a workforce shortage, but the number one priority that we need to place it on is making sure that we have an adequate number of police officers and those that work in the public safety sector to make sure our communities are safe. So what am I doing? This bill will have a $10,000 signing bonus. If you sign up to be a new police officer, brand new police officer, $10,000, you have to serve 1 year before you get it. It goes to the agency that appointed that person. You can't game the system. In other words, it can't be moving from one police force to another, but it's $10,000 that they can get 1 year later. And we're gonna have $20 million available for this so that we have the opportunity to hire a bunch of new police officers. So this, today, we're just focusing on the hiring aspect, and this is the proposal that I have. Thank you.
Hi all, thanks for being here today. I'm State Senator Justin Eichhorn from Grand Rapids. And all we're really trying to do is get more people to consider this honorable profession of law enforcement as a career. My package would provide $1,500 in additional financial aid for folks to get into law enforcement if they are a state of Minnesota resident. These simple steps and the other steps you've heard will make to ensure the public support of law enforcement is demonstrated through the state of Minnesota budget. I just want to speak personally for a minute. As somebody from greater Minnesota, all of our cities are looking to keep kids in our community safe and have kids be able to stay in the community and support their jobs with a family supporting job like law enforcement is. Every single one of our local departments, whether it's in Grand Rapids or Bemidji or throughout the rest of the state, is looking for police officers. There's just not enough people to continue to go in these professions because they've continued to have been denigrated by the left and the Defund the Police movement. I can tell you as I talk to people in my communities, they're not afraid to come to Minneapolis and St. Paul because of COVID. They're afraid to come to Minneapolis and St. Paul because they're afraid they're gonna get shot. They're afraid of the violence, the carjackings, the robberies, and it needs to stop. And part of that is getting more law enforcement folks on the street and uplifting this profession again. The Defund the Police movement's disrespect of our peace officers and police officers has led to fewer students pursuing this career, and I think these grants of $1,500 will help support the next generation of peace and police officers that will help keep our communities safe. Thank you.
Bottom line is violent crime is absolutely out of control, and it's time to take it seriously and address it. We're hearing from people who no longer feel safe in the communities that they live, work, and raise a family, and it's unacceptable. And while we have some proposals here for recruitment, very important proposals to recruit more police officers, the number one thing public officials can do right now is show police officers the respect and appreciation they deserve for the risks they take in helping keep people in our communities safe. Any questions?
It seems the quickest way to add cops to the force is to keep the cops who are currently on the force. Do you have anything in this or anything coming up on retention bonuses?
Yes. So we have basically 3 different packages of proposals. Today we're talking about recruiting more police officers. In addition, we'll have a package of proposals to hold criminals accountable for their actions and getting tougher on crime. And then we'll also talk about retention of current police officers. Yes. Those, we're still in the process of, actually, as I said a couple of weeks ago, we're still in the process of getting some of the language back. The revisor's office has been backed up, so we have proposals in the pipeline.
Do you intend to put forward money to help local agencies actually pay the salaries of these officers at all, or you're just helping them bring them in, and what happens from there is up to them?
Today, we're talking about recruitment of police officers. We'll talk about retention at a later time, once those proposals are ready to go.
And Senator Gazelle, if I'm doing the math on yours, that could be up to 2,000 new officers if everyone gets the maximum bonus feel like there's enough people out there to scoop up that money?
So the question was, my proposal would be able to add up to 2,000 police officers. Is that enough? Is there enough people out there? And that's the point. We have a workforce shortage everywhere. So what is the number one priority that we need to have to make sure we get adequate people in working? And that's public safety. And so that's why we're aggressive on the number. And as the leader has said, we have 2 additional packages that we're working on related to retention and also keeping our streets safe with minimum sentences. Thank you.
We'll just say if that money is fully spent, it's a big victory for the people of Minnesota.
Senator Miller, have you had conversations with DFL leaders and the governor specifically about the grant proposal? That seems to align with something that the governor pitched, which was loan forgiveness up to 5 years, $1,000 each year. I mean, this is financial aid, you know, I guess maybe semantics there, but that seems to be an overlap there. Have you had discussions about that with your counterparts?
There is some overlap, which is really good to see. We're happy that Democrats are finally making public safety a priority this year because, as I said earlier, Republicans cannot do this on our own. We can put proposals out there, but we need Democrats in the House. We need the governor to join our efforts, and in the proposals that have been put out there, it does look like there is some overlap, so that's a good thing. It's a positive sign. It's a top priority. Public safety is a top priority for Senate Republicans, so these proposals will start moving as quickly as possible, and hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we'll have many of them teed up and ready to go for votes on the Senate floor.
This year, typically, a budget year is one big bill that piles up at the end. You want this out the door before May.
This will be out the door before May. I am not a fan of one large supplemental budget bill. These public safety proposals will be ready to go and be voted on the Senate floor as quickly as possible, much sooner than May.
Can I ask a question of Senator Jasinski or Eichhorn, a greater Minnesota question? I'm not discounting your concerns about rhetoric, but you live in communities where I'm guessing there's less of that, and that your officers who are out on patrol are not as subject to that sort of criticism or rhetoric or activism, but yet you're still saying it's hard to recruit in your areas. So how do you explain that?
Well, you're spot on. It is happening in rural Minnesota. I'm just going to use a classic example. Chief Andy Bolin, I hired when I was the mayor of Faribault. He served 32 years in law enforcement. I think he's 52 years old, 51 years old. I believe, and I've had conversations with him, if things were the way they are today, he probably would have stayed on a couple more years. But people in rural Minnesota, just as much, maybe not as much as the metro, but they're hearing the same rhetoric there. So I think it is having a huge impact across the state in rural communities like mine, because I'm seeing officers like that. We also had a Sheriff Troy Dunn for Rice County who's also retired. They're retiring earlier than I believe they would typically stay if it weren't for the rhetoric that's going on.
Are they hearing it on TV or are they hearing it on the street?
Even in Faribault, our officers are being sworn at, spit upon, given the finger. It's happening across everywhere that I've seen. Justin may talk about northern Minnesota, but I know in my district, District 24, they're seeing it as well. Not to the degree I believe that they are in the metro, but we're definitely seeing it.
So is more money really enough to encourage people to go into this profession? Is money enough, I guess is the question.
Money's not enough. As I said earlier, public officials at all levels, all parties, need to start showing law enforcement the respect and appreciation that they deserve for the work they do and the risks they take in keeping people and communities safe. That's the most important thing. Law enforcement is an honorable profession, and they deserve to be recognized for the good work that they do. And the anti-police rhetoric that we've seen at an all-new high level over the course of the last couple of years has not been helping one bit. And to answer the question about greater Minnesota or rural Minnesota, so what I'm hearing from local police departments is a few years ago, they would get many, many applicants for one position. And now they're getting much fewer, and in some cases, they're not getting any qualified applicants for open law enforcement positions. So it's not just a metro issue, it's a statewide issue. And what we're proposing today is one step, one part of the solution. There's more to come, but I think this is a step in the right direction to encourage folks to enter this honorable profession.
Yeah, I think this is an important one, and Leader Miller talked about it too, but I've talked to a number of law enforcement people that said do not lower the standards. And so we don't intend to lower the standards. We want the best people being police officers. So if we're not going to lower the standards, I don't see any way around not having to pay more because the risk is so high. And so, but we're not going to lower the standards either.
Senator Eichhorn, you looked like you were going to respond to that.
I was just going to echo Senator Jasinski's comments. I can say it's not just a problem we're seeing in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Police on the streets, whether it's in Bemidji or Grand Rapids, are just like Senator Jasinski's police officers. They're getting swore at, spit at, treated poorly, and none of them deserve that. Nobody deserves that, regardless of their profession. So we are seeing it throughout the state, and it's not just something they're seeing on media or Facebook. It's something they're seeing in person as well, and it's really unfortunate and needs to change.
Part of the rhetoric or skepticism from some communities about policing and the defund the police movement comes from this idea of lack of trust among communities. I'm sure critics could see this proposal and say, throwing more money at the police isn't going to solve some of the problems. I'm wondering, how do you answer that? And, does this further propel the argument of, there's this fractured line of trust and it's not going to solve the problem of wanting to get more people into policing, if that makes sense?
You want to say?
I think that's a misunderstanding. We know now that 85% of the public trusts the police. And, there was that narrative from the left that nobody trusted them, that they weren't doing their job. When you actually ask the people of Minnesota, throughout Minnesota, 85% trust the police. We do too.
Also, one of the proposals that we talked about is a community, recruiting people from the community that they live to become police officers in that community. So we think that would address the issue that you're talking about, and we're providing more funding for recruitment in that area.
Senator, as long as we have you here, save you time later. You guys are taking up the recruitment's comp bill today. Is there anything else that's being teed up for quick action that you guys have all agreed upon, the governor, you, and the House?
So the presumptive workers' compensation, as you mentioned, will be voted on today on the Senate floor. Two other areas that I think we can find quick solutions and common ground are UI. The governor's been talking about, the Senate's been talking about, the House has been talking about it. So the UI trust fund, as well as staffing shortages at hospitals and long-term care facilities, at least short-term solutions. The governor's talked about it. We've talked about it. We've agreed to it. I've had conversations with Speaker Hortman. So I think those three things in particular can move relatively quickly. And then my hope is, since everybody's talking about it now, my hope is public safety will move very quickly as well, because it is the #1 issue that's facing our state right now. When people don't feel safe, it's unacceptable, and we need to address it as quickly as possible.
I know when you guys rolled out your priorities, there was a mention about money for a marketing campaign or something similar. Is that more the retention part, or I might have missed it in this, but is that part of the proposal at all?
Yep, Senator Housley mentioned that. You want to touch on that?
Thank you. Yeah, we have seen it work in other states just because our police officers have been demoralized, and like Senator Jasinski said, they can't get applicants for these positions because of what the left and their rhetoric has been. So this campaign, the $1 million, has worked in other states to help lift them up and show what an honorable profession that it is. So that's the plan, is to do a whole marketing campaign to thank our police officers and to help recruit more.
Senator Miller, on the UI trust fund, is there a dollar amount around which you found agreement? Is that still open at this point?
So Senator Rosen and Senator Pratt have been working on the numbers. The governor, I believe, has proposed $2.7 billion, give or take, and that's the number that we will agree to.